Tuesday evening Central Standard Time. Time for some Toy Tuesday. Going to check out some cool memorabilia tonight. Since we are live, we're going to give everybody a few seconds to get their notifications so that they know we're on, so they have a chance to jump on with us, and then we're going to check out some cool World War II era stuff tonight. So, we'll hold on a second, and we'll get rolling here real shortly. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. We've got some cool stuff to check out tonight. Like I've been promising you, I've got a lot of World War II stuff, and I keep telling you I'll work some more of that in. I'll get it worked into the schedule. Old School made it tonight. Glad you're here. And so I got some of it out tonight, and thought we'd show you a few pieces. And when I was getting some stuff ready for tonight, Joe made it tonight. Glad you're here. Shayla said that, hey, we got a bunch more of that in the basement. I couldn't remember where a lot of this stuff had been. We had loaned a bunch of it to the local historical society a few years ago for an air show. And so I've got a bunch more of it that I knew I had it. I just didn't remember where it got put. So she said, we put it down in the basement. So I found a whole bunch more cool stuff tonight that I didn't remember where it was at. So Bill's here. Glad you made it. So I found a bunch more of this World War II stuff that I've been wanting to share with you guys. So at least I know where it's at, so now I can start working some more of it in. Kevin's on. Glad you're here. Tonight we're going to check out some aircraft gauges as well as a gun camera. The gun camera is a super cool piece too. So anyway, a couple of these gauges are identified. One of them is not as far as the aircraft. So Eloy made it. Peter from Oz for Toy Wednesday for him. So I think it's noon there tomorrow down under. Brandon's here. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get rolling. James from Virginia. And I hope you guys like this stuff. It's kind of different, a little different than what we typically do, but I know a lot of you guys dig the World War II stuff, so we'll start working some more of it in. So, Steel Ponies made it. Rusty Nails is here. Glad you guys are all here. Here's what we're going to check out tonight. Terry from Kentucky's here. We'll just start over here on the left. This is an engine temp gauge. This is out of a B25. Big Job made it. This actually has an ID tag on it that from where we bought this piece at. Nice piece, nice face, good glass, little scratched up, old school. I don't know if you can show swastikas or not. I don't have a lot of Nazi stuff in my collection. It's just American stuff. Lee's here. Peter says, yep, it's noon there. That's right, number one. A lot of people like these for hot rod gauges as well. We see the back of this still has the tag on it. From the Electric Auto Light Company, Instrument and Gauge Division. Alan NC's here. Glad you made it. 12 or 24 volts. Now, obviously, in pretty good shape for its age. What's cool about this is identified. Let me show you how we know what's identified and what it is. Here's where the tag on it where we bought it. World War II, U.S. Army Air Force, or Army Air Corps technically at that point. B25 Mitchell Bomber dual engine temp gauge. So, where this came from was Fantasy of Flight. We picked this up while we were visiting there. Steel Ponies, thanks God it's shipment Saturday. Great, glad it made it. Fantasy of Flight is in Florida. If any of you guys if you've never heard of Fantasy of Flight and you dig airplanes, you have got to check this place out. It is amazing. Probably one of the best, if not the best collections of aircraft probably about anywhere in the world. Definitely one of the top collections for sure. It is in Florida, south of Orlando. We haven't been there in several years. It was around 2012, 2013 was the last time we were there. But an absolutely amazing collection. That's right, Joe. Kermit Weeks is who owns that collection. And, he was there while we were there. He got some planes out and flew them every day. They fly something. Great piece. Brandon says, best World War II bomber ever built. Kevin says, is it a museum? Actually, there's the stickers that they give you. It is actually a museum and an amazing collection. It really is. But most of the planes do fly. They have changed their format a little bit. Cement Surfers here. They used to be open regularly as a regular tourist attraction. They have changed some of that over the years as I've kind of kept up with them on Facebook and their website. So I don't think they're open like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but I think they're open certain days, and I know they're open for special events. But an amazing, amazing place. That's right, Joe. B25 was a medium-duty bomber. That's exactly what it was. So that's where we got this piece, and that's why since that tag was on it, I definitely wanted to point it out. Steel Pony says they have great videos on YouTube. Yeah, they do. I do see some of Kermit's stuff pop up. If you have any interest whatsoever in aircraft or World War II, you have got to check out Fantasy of Flight. Check out their YouTube channel. Check out the place. If you ever have a chance to go, go. It is a no-brainer. Absolutely amazing collection. So when I found that gauge tonight and I saw it still had the tag on it, I definitely thought that was worth bringing up to anybody that's interested in stuff. Be sure to check it out. So anyway, there's the first gauge, B25 engine temp gauge. The next gauge I have not been able to identify. This is an altimeter. It has a cracked lens. I got this at an auction. And you type in altimeter and it just gives you tons and tons of different options. Old School Memoirs of World War II YouTube channel is great. GF Baker, I'd love to know the percentage of World War II pilots that went on to become pilots after the war. Or a lot of say, nope, I'm not flying anymore. Yeah, and that's a good point too. But this gauge I have not been able to identify. It does have a tag on the back that is still clear and legible from Wichita, Kansas. However, I positively identify what this gauge is. So, but it is still a cool piece. Like I said, I got it at an auction out of a big World War II collection. And so that's where I picked it up from. Just have not been able to positively ID it. But it is still a cool piece even with the cracked lens. The next piece I was able to identify, this is a fuel gauge. And this is a cool piece. This is actually, from what I have found, from what I've been able to compare, and all the pictures I showed up did pretty much definitely clarify this as B29. 4 gauges, fuel quantity. Now what's cool is if we watch the gauge, as we flip the switch, the actual whole gauge flips. Brandon says looks like B17. Old School says I've never met a World War II military person. I've met quite a few, fortunately. As a matter of fact, Bud Anderson just turned 100 years old. Flew the P-51 Old Crow. I actually met him at Oshkosh 5 or 6 years ago. These aren't raffle items. These are definitely my personal collection. So I was able to meet Bud Anderson, have his book, got his book at that time. He signed it and everything, so it was super awesome. But this gauge is cool. As I said, as you flip the switch, the entire gauge switches. You can see there's the whole gauge switches to the different fuel tanks as you roll through these things. So like I said, that's right, Joe, Bud Anderson, the flew Old Crow, the P-51 Old Crow, an ace in World War II, just turned 100 years old. So, but this is a pretty good size gauge. It's a pretty good size box. Has all this stuff on the back. Look at all the connectors on the plug-in. We've still got the tag on this one from the Liquidometer Corporation, New York, USA. But a pretty neat piece. Number one, if you call them a World War II military person, you probably never will. Google your local region and go buy beers on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, they're getting far and few between. I've been fortunate to know a lot of them. There was one who just passed away about 6 months ago that I always wanted to do YouTube videos with, and I didn't get it done, and that was my fault for not asking. But he flew C-46s and C-47 transport planes, and even flying transport planes, he had some amazing stories. So unfortunately, I didn't get that done. I still feel bad about that. But there's a lot of those guys that have done living histories. There's a lot of them out there, and they are pretty amazing to hear their stories and hear it from their mouths, from the guys that experience this stuff. It's pretty amazing. So thought this piece was really great, especially when I started flipping it, and this thing, the whole freaking gauge flipped. Joe, met him too, and he signed his book and shirt at Oshkosh. So I think that was 15 or 16 when I was there, Joe. What year was you there? Look at that, 1,415 U.S. gallons in that tank would hold. That tank would hold 1,320 U.S. gallons, 1,320, and 1,415. So I don't know if that were, inboard or outboard. I assume probably the inboard tanks were probably the 1,415 gallon versus the 1,320 gallon, but still an awful lot of fuel in that thing. So cool piece there. I was really excited about that as well. Now, the last piece I've got out for tonight, 2016. So I think that's when I was there last. Actually, I think that was the last time I was there, Joe. So that would have been the exact same time. We were probably there the same day. He gave a talk out in the Warbird area. They had him out in the middle of some of the planes, out by some of the 51s and stuff, and he was out there giving a talk. I caught part of his talk, and then he went into that building right there in the gift shop, and that's where they were selling the book, and you could get it signed. So maybe you were there at the same time as I was, but it was pretty cool to hear him give a talk in person. I believe Jack Roush was there with him that day, if I remember correctly. It's 5.5 years ago. I'm trying to think back, so sometimes doing good to remember yesterday. So, yep, that's Joe says that's when he was there. That's what he remembers. So that's pretty cool. Joe was there at the same time I was, experiencing the same thing. And here we are almost 6 years later still talking about it and what we remembered from that day. So that's pretty cool. The next piece we're going to check out, it's not a gauge, but it's out of an airplane. And what's the average market price for working World War II gauges? I have no idea. You know, the market for people that need them is pretty thin. You know, there's Joseph, very nice guy to talk. Yeah, he was very pleasant when we were signing autographs and taking pictures. You know, me and Shayla and my daughter all got pictures with him. That's right. Kevin says World War II vets are part of the greatest generation. Those guys did some amazing things and to fight for our freedom so that we can enjoy what we do today. So that's 100% right. But the next piece we're going to look at, if you watch old World War II aerial footage, and you see these dogfights, and you see some of this footage of these aircraft. Daniel made it tonight. Glad you're here. These aircraft and what they did. If you've seen the footage where you see tracer bullets as these fighters are engaging in World War II, whether it was in the ETO or the Pacific Theater, either one, you see these tracer bullets being fired, and they have footage of that. Yeah, Rusty Nelson says, look at our pictures, see if we can find each other in the background. That's a good point. Now, how did they get that footage? I mean, obviously, that's right. We'd all be speaking to German, Italian, and Japanese. That's right, old school. Obviously, they didn't have a cameraman riding on the wing of these P-51s as they were engaged in dogfights over Europe. They had what were called gun cameras. They were mounted in the wings. They were activated when the pilot pulled the trigger. Brandon, you need a Sherman tank. I am so down with that. I would be perfectly happy with a tank. I'm kind of a fan of tanks. So, Daniel says his dad's dad was in World War II. My mom's dad was in World War II. So, yeah, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of ties to World War II that it's so important that we don't forget that. But whenever that pilot pulled the trigger when he was engaged in a dogfight, it activated the gun camera in the wing. That's what took the footage of those bullets as they were fired out of those 50 cals in the wings of those P-51 Mustangs, or the P-47s, or the P-38s, any of those amazing fighters from back in that day. That footage was how pilots were able to confirm their kills. Joe, some gun cameras were in the nose, such as the P-38. Big job, old school. We might be speaking Chinese here soon. Yeah. Old school says his grandfather was in North Africa and Italy. That's where my grandpa actually was in North Africa. Brandon's grandpa drove Shermans in World War II. So for these pilots, to come back and say, oh yeah, I shot down two, Messerschmitts, or whatever they were up fighting against, even some of the Me-262s, they shot down a few of the Me-262s. Things like that. So how did they confirm it? Steel ponies, those old warbirds, is just as important to save as old classic cars, and that's 100% true. I love them. I can't get enough of them. I think they're absolutely amazing machines. That's why I fell in love with them, because after studying the technology and what they did with a lot of this stuff, and speaking of the technology, I've got some stuff that if you're a tech guy, will blow your mind as far as what they were doing in World War II with B-29s prior to dropping the atomic bomb. I've got a whole notebook of classified documents and schematics that we haven't even opened up yet that we're going to look at one of these nights. That just the technology, the developments that happened in such a short period of time. I mean, you're talking, some of this stuff was days and months to major changes in technology. All happened in that very small window. So, but anyway, as those pilots were engaged in dogfights, they could, it was hard to come back and say, oh, I shot down an Me-262. Who knows? I think I got a Focke-Wulf. What they used was the gun camera footage out of those planes. That's what we've got next. Right here, this is an original, authentic World War II gun camera. Amazing how they discovered a P-38 Glacier Girl and restored it. Yeah, that's true. That was quite a deal when they pulled her out. But this gun camera, actually, I don't know what it was in. It was used, it basically used the same gun camera in, most of those fighters. That was the lens. This one's obviously cracked. Nuclear bomb, atomic bomb, then hydrogen bomb are the most powerful, says Old School. But this would have mounted in the wing, and this camera would have engaged when the pilot pulled the trigger. Pretty basic deal, nothing exotic. Plug-ins over here. Film cartridge went right back in here. Would load the cartridge in there. Close her up, put it back, make sure it's set in the plane, and all hooked up. So when the pilot pulled the trigger, this engaged, turned on, and recorded the battle. See indicator at index for desired speeds. Do not change speed when camera is running. We do have some knobs over here to where we can make some adjustments with these units. Don't know exactly what these controls are for, but they do turn and they do move. Had some little gauges in them. Are a little tough to make out today, almost 80 years later. Property, U.S. Army Air Force's gun camera, gun type AN-N6. The Lackner Company, Incorporated, Cincinnati, Ohio. That's right, big job. That's a good time to say that. I thank all veterans who sacrificed their life for us. God bless your family members and all those unselfish men and women, and that's true 100%. And with what these guys did in World War II, and they're 18, 20 years old, they're climbing into these things, taking off, and never knowing if they're coming home again. I've ridden in a B-17 at Oshkosh. We went 2 years in a row, 15 and 16. We rode in it both years. The EAA has a B-17 that is restored that they do fly at Oshkosh. And so we did buy tickets. We flew in it twice. And when you get up in that thing, now granted, we're flying low. I mean, we flew over the airfield. We never got up there at 20, 30,000 feet because those things aren't sealed. They're not pressurized. I mean, there's actually openings in them where air is coming in when you're flying in them. Rusty Nail says, don't shoot, he's changing his film. That thing literally, and we all have heard this expression. We all hear it brought up every time we talk about World War II pilots. They were flying in a tin can. I've been in one. It's a tin can. That's all it is. They are a big, long tin can, and that's it. They're not armored. They're not heavy duty. They're not sealed. They're not comfortable. You don't have a nice comfy seat like we think about when we fly in an airplane today. They didn't have nothing. They had stools to sit on, thin sheet metal to protect them, and that's about it. When you walk over the bomb bay door, even in this B-17 that we flew in, it's a very, very narrow passageway, so narrow that you almost have to turn sideways to walk across this little platform over the bomb bay area. And, well, you know what's right below you? The bomb bay doors. That's it. If that, during World War II, if you were flying a mission, if you were coming from the front of the plane to the back of the plane, or the back of the plane to the front of the plane, you walked literally right over the bomb bay. It's a tin can. You had to crawl underneath the pilots to get into the nose of the aircraft. Joe, worst position was the ball turret gunner in a B-17, and that's 200% true. Lots of issues with the ball turrets. Guys would get stuck in them, things like that. Plus, they were tiny. You had to be a little guy to get in them. Number one, when they developed the closed canopy cockpit, most pilots didn't even want to fly them at first. And this B-17, you don't think about it when you're at, a couple thousand feet. It's not a big deal. 20, 30,000 feet, it's cold. It's well below zero. You're flying 300-400 miles an hour. It's wouldn't be fun. Kevin, my dad flew the privateer's plane Oh, in World War II and to jam Japanese radios. That's interesting. That'd be some interesting stories there as well. So, you know, I've experienced a B-17 in flight. Not at 20, 30,000 feet, at 30 below zero, at 300 miles an hour with wind blowing on you. But I've experienced it, and that's what it is. It's a tin can. It's tight. There's not a lot of room in them. Terry, World War I planes were awesome planes, too, like the looks of them. Yeah, absolutely. The old, you know, the open cockpit type stuff, yep, that's pretty cool, too. So, but that's, like I said, I'm speaking from a little bit of experience as far as flying in a B-17, but Daniel, his uncle was in Vietnam. Let's see. Number one, that's why the coolest coat in the world was invented, the bomber jacket. That's 100% true. I don't have a bomber jacket. I've got pants. I've got some of the, you know, the big heavy leather pants that they flew. I've got a pretty decent pair of those, but I do not have a bomber jacket. But that's right. That's why they invented the coolest jacket ever on the face of the planet, the bomber jacket. It was pretty amazing. It was kind of to actually experience that, be up in the air in that thing, have this much of an understanding of what those guys went through. Just that much, because we weren't at high altitude. We weren't being shot at. We weren't trying to stay on a bomb run to hit a target. You know, I experienced this much of what those guys went through, and I can't even imagine what it would have been like in combat. So, but anyway, that's what we've got for tonight. Like I said, I've got... I've never tried them on, number one. Never have tried them on, actually. So, but anyway, that's what we've got for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, I know Joe's been waiting on the World War II stuff. Like I said, I'm super excited. I found all that other stuff tonight. So lots of cool stuff there to check out. And that's why I just grabbed a few pieces tonight, because I knew once we got into the conversation and started talking about some of this stuff, it was going to take some time just to get through a handful of pieces. So, but we've got lots more to do. So it's pretty cool stuff, and it's definitely an important piece of history. You know, you faded out on me, Daniel, before I got to you. So but there again, that's part of what we do here. Even though this isn't cars, it's still vehicles, and it's still pretty cool stuff. Number one, for the most part, despite all the training, it was a bunch of guys scared to hell and another bunch of guys scared to hell. And that's exactly what it boils down to. And there's a lot of stories about some very impressive chivalry that happened between pilots as well in that time. Peter Selton, seen on American Pickers, bought a heated plug-in flying suit. Yeah, I think I've seen that too. Chris, my neighbor's friend survived the Bataan death march and told of the incredible story they went through. So, but like I said, it's important parts of our history. That's why I like it. That's why I enjoy it. We've got lots more cool stuff to go over. You know, as long as you guys are still cool with that. If you guys still like the World War II stuff, we'll keep working some of it in. Even though it's not specifically car, I still love airplanes. I love this time period in aircraft. I love the developments and the technology that came about in that window of time. And I love what we've learned for it and what it means to us today. If you've never been to Oshkosh, I extremely encourage it. If you've never been to Fantasy of Flight, that's also a must. Both great things if you love aircraft in any way, shape, or form, or even just the history behind some of this stuff. Excuse me. It's pretty amazing. So Joe says more World War II stuff. Joe's not shy. Let's just get more of it out. We can definitely do that. But I enjoy it. I love the history behind it. And like I said, the first time I saw Fifi, almost probably, when was that? 99, maybe 2000 was the first time that Fifi was in Great Bend that I saw her. And that's when I first flipped for these old airplanes. And that's what, you know, caused me to fall in love with them. So that's why we're doing, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about. Brandon, how about the desert graveyards in Arizona? I have never been there. I would love to go, but I've never been there. Something I've never done, but I would love to see that stuff because I just love all this stuff. More World War II gauges for the raffle or for auction. I don't think I've got any extra stuff. If I got some extras, maybe. Ford, GM, and Dodge all built war stuff. Yep, that's correct also, Peter. All the manufacturers did go into war production. In fact, there's a great book on that called The Arsenal of Democracy. Norma likes it. let's see. The Arsenal of Democracy is a great book. I own it. I've read it. It is specifically about American industry gearing up for World War II. So if you're interested in this stuff, you've not read the Arsenal of Democracy, definitely read it. Number one, I should get an old cockpit to sit in for the live streams. I like that idea. I need to find one now. That's a great plan, number one. So, Arsenal of Democracy, great book. I'm actually just about ready to finish up a book that has been extremely interesting on Opal during World War II. Now, if Dan says cool stuff, that's right, and a good reminder that freedom isn't free. 200% correct, Dan. Thanks for throwing that up there. Opal, during World War II, was already owned by General Motors. It was an American factory in Germany during World War II. Very interesting book about how GM somewhat maintained control as long as they could. The factory was actually, of course, essentially taken over by the Nazis and was used to make parts for the Junkers 88 bomber. So it was an American-owned factory turning out parts for the Nazis because the Nazis had taken over the plant. It was right in the middle of Germany. You know, there wasn't much General Motors could do about it. Great book. I'm just about done with it. So, and that's right. They actually, you're 100% correct, old school. At their other plant, the other Opel plant, they were building trucks, 2.5 and 3 ton trucks for the Nazi military out of the Opel plant. So, pretty interesting book. It was a little bit of a challenge of a read. Lots of names, lots of details, but it was well worth it. I'll have to get that out and show you that. Plus, it also talks about the Volkswagen, how the Volkswagen came to be. Daniel found it a couple days ago. There's a museum of talks that have a military version of a Cadillac, and Cadillac built a lot of powertrains for a lot of military vehicles. A lot of World War II military vehicles had Cadillac flathead V8s in them. So, anyway, Mick said his dad was a flight something. Must have got cut off on that comment. But anyway, number one, there's a few long books about how GM and American auto industry tried to prevent the British from restarting vehicle production. Peter watched History of Ford, and they showed the war effort and how they changed planes built at that time. That's right, big job. This conversation tonight just keeps you thinking about how courageous these people were and the kind of stress and hell they were put under for us. True heroes, 200% correct. Chad just made it. That's all right, Kenny. You can definitely go back and catch it. Another fun fact, though. See, old school. Fanta was invented by the Nazis because Coca-Cola was banned. That I did not know. That's very interesting. However, speaking of Ford and aircraft, obviously, we all know Willa Run was turned into full-bore B-24 production. However, initially, Ford was not going to get involved in the war effort. When the Merlin engine design came over from England and they were looking for someone to manufacture it, they went to Ford. Daniel, I guess Herbie the Bug was a good Volkswagen. Yeah, I think Herbie was a pretty good Volkswagen. They went to Ford and asked them to build the Merlin engines. Ford refused. Ford said, we're not in this war and we're not going to be involved in this war. They went to Packard, and that's why Packard got the contract to build Merlin engines for what was used in the P-51 Mustangs. So, interesting little bit of fun fact there since Ford got brought up too. That's right, old school. Henry was against the war. That's why he would not build the engines he would not take on the contract to build the Merlin engines. Mick's dad was a flight crew member. Okay, there we go. I figured something got cut off. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get ready to wrap up. We could go on all night on this stuff. But Arsenal of Democracy, great read if you're interested in this stuff. The Opal book, and I can't remember what it's called. I haven't looked at the cover in quite a while. I've got it. I've just been reading it, so I've had it open. I haven't looked at the cover, but I'll bring that book. We'll check it. I'll show you guys what that is. Both great reads, both very interesting, good history lessons that are both directly tied to the auto industry in that time frame. So, anyway, I'll shut up so we can get going. Henry was against the war, but had a few tendencies they really tried to bury. And you're 100% correct, number one. Hitler and Henry Ford were friends. from what I remember. But Henry Ford had a lot of demands, so to speak, on his employees that they were expected to follow as far as how they live their lives. And Henry Ford went to the extent of having, you don't want to use the word Gestapo, but that's essentially what they were. They were Ford policemen who would literally show up at his employees' houses and make sure that they were living clean lives according to Henry Ford. So, there were some tendencies about Henry Ford that, weren't, like I said, that some things they've tried to bury over the years. So whatever happened to Ovaltine, I have no idea, Brandon. Don't have any clue. So Hitler wasn't friends with anyone. He used people that would have actually backstabbed him. Yeah, and that's true too. But, the Volkswagen, the people's car, was basically designed because of, the Model T, the car for the people. Caterpillar used to help build the undercarriage for the American tanks. So that's, which is true too, So there was, all the American manufacturers were heavily involved in the war effort. That's why that book, The Arsenal of Democracy, is so great and such a great read. I haven't read it in quite a while. Actually, I probably ought to get that one back out and read it again. But anyway, I'll shut up. I know you guys got stuff to do. We've kind of rambled on. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like this stuff. I got a lot more of it we can work in as long as you guys are cool with it. Obviously, we know Joe's up for it. Joe's ready to go already. So anyway, just let me know. Keep me posted. Let me know, throw it up in the comments now, or let me know Sunday night. And that's right, Big Job. Look at how Henry treated Edsel. There's a lot of truth to that as well. Because the tri-motor and a lot of that stuff were, Edsel's babies. So, Joe, thanks for showing some World War II stuff. Joe's loved World War II aircraft since he was a kid. So that's great. We got more of it. We'll get over to the propeller one of these nights. I got a propeller in the shop next door. Steel Pony says, great show. Peter says, see y'all next week. Well, I appreciate it. Hope you guys like it. We'll keep working some more in. And sneak a World War II piece in on Sunday as well, says number one. All right. Cement Surfer says, thanks. Kevin says, good show. Appreciate y'all guys swinging by, hanging out tonight, checking it out. Glad you guys liked it. And Norma says she's definitely liked it, so that's great. And we'll work some more of it in. So I'm going to get to work. You guys can all get on with your evening. Brandon says, another great sermon. Thanks. And let's see what's coming else is coming up yet this week. I got more videos. I got a Chevy truck I got to throw up. I've got 61 Impala video I got to show up. 71 Olds video I got to throw up. So lots of cool stuff coming. We'll definitely have some more cool videos tomorrow night and Friday. And then number 1, 4th of July Junkyard Jamboree in Great Bend. Yeah, that might be a possibility. You never know. So anyway, stay tuned for more videos. We will definitely hope to see you all back Sunday night. Get your chances in for the raffle. We're giving that raffle pack, the January pack. We are giving it away Sunday night. So if you have not gotten to it, check the PayPal information on the Sunday night chat post and get it into me so I make sure I've got you in the big Buick oil can for the oil can and license plate giveaway for Sunday night. So one thing I did not do tonight, I forgot to, was get the pedal car out that we were talking about, whether we want to do the pedal car for the next month's raffle. So something else to think about that we'll talk about on Sunday is whether or not we want to raffle off a pedal car for next week. And an original, it's been repainted, so it's not original condition, but it's an original 60s era old school metal pedal car. So that's right, Big Job says, be there Sunday, people. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching tonight. Appreciate you swinging by and hanging out. Hope you liked the gauges and the gun camera tonight. We will see you Sunday live, 7 o'clock for Sunday Night Live.